Hello, everybody. This is our monthly
Hello.
meetup. Sorry it didn't happen. I've been terribly sick. I hope none of you catch it. Meg, especially. I know you're near my vicinity. It's nasty, whatever is happening. So, um,
Mm.
we're gonna be talking about interviewing today. I'm gonna kick it off by going over what I look for when I interview folks. Feel free to ask me questions, chime in, have your cat meow, what have you. Um, so let's talk about. So when I get someone to interview, I've already gone through the process of looking at their portfolio and seeing, okay, they probably have the chops to do what I want them to do, depending on the job. So the interview, when I get you there, that's where I'm going to really determine if you are going to fit not only working with me but the team, if you're a culture fit, and see if you can actually, kind of do the skills that are involved. So some questions that I'll ask to like start determining those things, is I'll ask questions to determine how flexible you are. So if I say, because this happens in the game industry a lot, where things suddenly will turn around. Like you'll do an asset, you'll get things in, and then something happens. Who knows? Like maybe your IP shareholder does not like what just came in. Maybe the art director, or things change, especially definitely in the beginning. So if you had done all this work and it suddenly changes, like how are you going to react to that? I also want to know if you're going to speak up for yourself and push back. And I'll ask for examples when you have had to push back, which you should. You should push back. You do not want to overscope yourself. And that will also help me determine how you handle those situations, and what your plan of attack would be. It also helps me determine your communication skills, how you're going to communicate with me, and how you're going to organize yourself within the department. Then I'll ask things how you'll handle, like if I give you so-and-so work, how much, I'll give you a task, how you think the best way to handle that task would be, just so I can determine how you would, again, communicate and work within that. And then I'll probably go into more detailed facts about your skills. Like I specifically work in Wise and Unity, so I'd definitely be asking you questions about that to determine where your skill level is on that as well. Not only that, I'll be asking questions to get a general idea about you. So of course I'll ask, what are you like? What do you like? Are you playing games? Do you like Dungeons and Dragons? Stuff like that, just to get a feel of who you are. And oh man, here's examples of what you shouldn't do. We had one guy, we asked him his hobbies, and he said he collects knives, and he had a bunch of knives on him, and he started showing us his knives, and I was like, why did we let this guy in the studio with a bunch of knives? And it was very off-putting. So if you like knives, don't bring them to your interview and show them off, please. It was weird. We also had one guy interrupt us and say he was only in it for the money, which cool, I guess. And but that it was all about the money rather than the aspect of the job, and so that showed he didn't really have the passion, I guess. It was just very off-putting. So another thing that we look for, we did a mock interview, me and Nick, a couple months ago, and we are also looking for how confident you were as well. I'm a big ball of anxiety, but um, it's good to also come in prepared and kind of knowing what to kind of expect and how you're going to answer some questions that might come up. Um, we might throw you some curveballs, but again, it's also just to determine um, how well you would fit into our studio and stuff like that. Um, Meg is so. I'm grateful that you're here. You have some resources to share and talk about. Um, Before we get into your section, does anyone have any questions so far? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw you a question that I think is interesting in this. Do you have any like memorable experience of something where everything like a thing that happened or something that an interviewee, is that how you say it? That
Mm-hmm.
they said that sort of like stuck with you and, made that memorable and also like sort
Um,
of moved your image of, or your perception of them.
so here's an example of someone where I immediately thought they would be a great fit. Um, it was over Zoom, and we were asking questions about Unity, and he's like, "Oh, I have Unity up already. Let me just share with you my screen." And he shared it, and he went through his steps, and that right there gave us so much confidence in what he was able to do, and we're like, "Oh, this is great. Thank you." He showed us exactly what his workflow would be. Um, so if you're on an interview, I highly recommend like maybe getting up some Wise projects or some of your DAWs up open. Just if someone asks you that question, you can be like, "Oh, yeah, sure. Here's how I would handle that and here's an example." And that, that would give you a great edge over other folks. Sorry, I'm going to go on and off as I handle my cold.
What would you say is the best way? May I speak?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you say is the best way to get the opportunity for an interview? Because I applied for like 50 jobs now, and it seems like no one's interested in having an audio programmer, sound designer, or anything, but they still want to hire one.
Um, so from what I've gathered from talking to other folks is they're getting over like 500 to 1,000 applicants. So it's a tough time right now, and it sucks. So you're going against other folks. So you'll want to make yours. It's kind of hard. Like if I'm looking at somebody's resume, I prefer ones who are at least one paged, maybe 2 pages, and I want their info and skills right then and there. So your formatting's gonna kind of matter. Um, I need to see your portfolio on there as well, just so I can hop on as quickly as possible. And your portfolio needs to show me, at least your first page has to be a reel that shows me your best work and your workflows. Do you have something to add to that, Sam?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just like too stuck in Zoom. I can't find a raise hand button. A couple of things on that same note about just the sheer volume of interviews. When I was interviewing, trying to jump from indie to AAA, the number one thing that helped me was speed. So, like, ideally, you want to be applying to a job within the first couple of days of it going up, because beyond that there's just going to be such an incredible volume of applicants that you're not going to get seen. Stuff to help with that is like I made a cover letter Mad Lib sheet where I could just slot in things that were relevant to that particular job and just to do things to make the process as quick as possible. And then to speak on just like getting more interviews, period, I feel like there isn't enough discussion in the audio realm about like putting together a good application package. I think it mostly focuses on demo reels. So look into stuff for like how to write a good cover letter, how to make a pleasing resume. And one of the things I was doing towards the end of it, which I think helped a lot, was running my resume and cover letter through the I think they're called ATS systems, application tracking systems. Basically, an algorithm will compare your cover letter and resume to the job posting and spit out a percentage of a match. Larger studios will just like straight up cut anything below a certain percentage. So running your application package through an ATS comparison system a couple of times before actually applying to get that number as high as you can seems to help.
To go on top of that, I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were saying they had so many applicants, but so many of them were not specified for what he was looking for. So he was looking for someone to help for specifically like sound design, and he said more than 90% were composers. And he said that's not what I was looking for. So I, if their resume was mostly about composing, I just skipped it, So you need to make your resume specific to the job you're applying to.
I was starting to create like one resume or one CV, which says everything, and then I started making resumes for sound design, technical audio designer, or just audio programmer, just in case.
Yep.
Just make a easy focus. Okay, this is what I want. This is what I can. Here, go ahead.
Yep. I mean, it sucks
But
that you'll have to do like specific resumes, and you might have a couple of them. But I'm telling you, with all the people applying, they're quickly looking over your stuff, and if it's not showing exactly what they're looking for, they're just gonna skip.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that creating, because I just recently learned that a CV and a resume is two different things and not the same. That's something we Norwegians don't really do, so it was kind of surprising to me.
I know a CV is longer.
Yeah, a CV is like everything that you've done for the last 20 years or something, like 3-4 pages.
Yeah.
And then a resume is just like, here it is, come on, hire me and all that.
Yeah.
And that's something like we have to start creating now because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Me neither. Just to mention the bit about the applications coming in that like aren't particularly fitting for the job posting. It's kind of a pessimistic way to look at it, but I like to say that hiring managers are looking for any excuse to cut you from the list. So it's something to keep in mind, just ironing out any possible little thing that could strike you off.
And the more eyes you get on your stuff, the better, because then they can call that stuff out. Yeah, Meg.
Yeah, for me, when I was, getting my portfolio and my demo reel and my resume and everything ready for applying, it really is about a lot of like little tiny nitty gritty detail things, like everything from making. It's really like about marketing yourself. So, if there's a color that you're using on your website, you also want to use that color on your resume, same font between the two, formatting things the same way. So if you're, putting a date as, like January to August of 2022, then you want to keep that, date formatting the same throughout your resume and your website. And obviously like doing a lot of spell checking and grammar checking and stuff like that. And exactly as I think Sam said, like getting a lot of other people's eyes on your resume, because they will catch things that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, I'm considering actually pushing the portfolio website on the monthly checkup here just to see like what can I improve, because I've recently just finished it and it lacks some things, but it's just one scroll page, so you can just see everything at once.
Speaking on that, I usually wait for about 5 people to post their stuff before I close it for like Sam and I to go in and give feedback. But while it's open, anyone is welcome to go give feedback on anyone's stuff. I mean, I encourage that because the more eyes, the better. So, another.
I'll check everyone's webpage.
Yeah. I don't know your name. I'm so sorry.
Eric, I check everyone's or most people's portfolios. I can just get stuff from the HTML and just add it to mine.
No, I'm sorry. I meant Jovertones.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I can't hear you. Woo, audio. Audio issues.
This is my favorite thing in meetings where it's like, why don't the audio people have audio that works? Because there are so many more failure points in our systems.
While she's typing that, I'm gonna say another thing is networking, of course. A lot of the times, those who get referrals and those who know somebody who's applying, those will get bumped up as well. So it doesn't hurt to reach out to anybody that you know of who would be in that company. And then while she's typing away, does anyone have any other questions?
I think I have one.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if too much variety in your demo reel is a bad thing.
Define variety.
For me, at least, I was considering of making like different sort of sound design projects based around different genres and multimedia, and I didn't know if compiling all that into a single demo reel was a really bad thing, or if I should just focus on projects and reels that focus on like one thing, like cyberpunk game sound effects or fantasy sound effects or like just TV show sound effects. Because my take is to increase my chances of getting hired, just show the versatility that I could offer.
Yeah.
And that's just from my perspective. I don't know what it looks like on the hiring manager's end.
I mean, if I got that and I saw all the variety, I mean, it would show me that you can do a lot of stuff. It also depends on what you're like. If I would also love to see like a second video of how you did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times when I've been talking to audio directors in the field, they've been mentioning how they're getting sick of seeing reels where they don't know how the people did it, and they just basically think it's probably they just grabbed a library and just slapped some audio on it, and they want to see what plugins and stuff you use and how you implemented it as well. So along with your variety, I would also add that as well.
Okay.
As probably a separate video. Though there was one video that I saw, I was helping somebody who is trying to get into Blizzard, and in their reel, I think it's the game design course, I can't remember, but they go through Wise and I think it's Unreal. And he went through, his demo reel was how he created the sounds and what sounds he used and how he applied it. That was his demo reel. But it was awesome, and that actually got him into Blizzard, because that one video showed the team that he had the chops to actually make the sound design and implement, and he knew how that was.
Okay.
It's tough because I also don't know like what job position you're trying to get into, if it's like in the video gaming or in like movies or TV shows or what have you.
Yeah, I think for the most part, video games, but at this point, I'm just eager to break into the industry at all,
Yeah, I
just
get
so I
that.
can start getting cutting my teeth, so to say.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I guess to follow up, I was going to ask if it is more valuable to, I guess, include your own sound effects that you've recorded in the open as opposed to just purchasing libraries or sample packs.
I mean, it's a good skill to have. Like if you had a video showcasing that you went and recorded and how you applied those, that that's good too.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if you'd have that in your main reel or not, because your reel needs to be at least a minute to 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
I would say that while it's good to show that you can record things as well, the end product is what matters
Yeah.
for the hiring managers. They want to
Yeah.
see what you've created with whatever you have. If you just have static noise, if you can make a soundscape of that, then you're hired.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really matter what library you use, as long as you edit it and show that you have applied the libraries that you have within your game.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
One person that I've hired before in my past career, they had a whole page of just tutorials of how they did stuff, and that gave her a huge edge on becoming hired, because it showed us she was still passionate about her job, and she was also making tutorials for other people, and so
Mhm.
even
Okay.
having a second like page just showcasing how you do your work and stuff.
Okay. I feel like with that being said, I think I just had the realization that I've been doing my portfolio and demo reels completely wrong.
I mean, feel free to
You too,
post.
huh?
Feel free to
For me,
post on our portfolio review page or channel to get more eyes on it.
yeah. I think I posted it a couple days ago because I
Oh,
had been
okay.
lurking for quite some time.
Yeah. I will get to I'll get to it eventually. I've been super busy.
No rush.
Yeah. Someone had their hand up. Walter.
By the way, I'm not sure if you can hear me because my preamp broke down, so I'm minus 27 decibel. So I had to.
We're just
bring it
gonna
up lower.
turn you up so we can hear you. Use the volume 200.
Yeah, I hear you. You're soft though, but I can hear you still.
Okay, great. Yeah, I had a question because I was also working on some reels, but I was also experimenting with some stuff, and I was thinking maybe it could also be nice to add certain short segments of redesigns where I spent just 1 hour in designing sounds. Do you think it could be something interesting to add to the reel as well? I'm not sure because it's a little bit experimental.
Are you saying so you did a re-sound design? If you should show
Yeah.
like how you did some of that work in your reel?
Yeah, like in a very short time, like in 1 hour max, for example, to show people that you can get up with something, come up with something pretty fast or something.
I think it's a good challenge for your own personal development. I don't think it's something that's necessarily valuable in a reel because I've lost my train of thought. I haven't had enough coffee today. I'm so sorry.
No,
Like, there's rarely a situation where when you're going to be working where it's like, okay, we have exactly 1 hour to get something done. Like, I think while it's impressive to be able to pull something out that's like some degree of shippable with that limited time frame, if there's any sort of problem with the final result, it's going to be that much more noticeable,
Yeah.
Like the final product is not where it needs to be. You should have spent more than an hour on it.
Yeah, it's about the final product. It's not really about the way towards it.
I mean,
I
it's
more about
it's
process,
both,
of course.
but your reel should be showing your best work.
Okay.
If for some reason that 1 hour thing is, because sometimes I hyper focus, like I get so excited and I'm like, woo. So I like if that 1 hour thing is your best work, put it in there.
Okay.
We do have Jovertone's question in the chat as well.
Oh yes.
Is there anything that you look for within the first 10 seconds of a reel or website that would get you on the hook for the rest of the portfolio? For me, it's accessibility of content. Like, nothing makes me want to close a website than something that like loads slowly or is hard to read. If the person who's put it together has very clearly put the effort in to make it readable and easily accessible, it's like, okay, this person cares about my experience looking through their portfolio. I wanted to do more of it. I want to really poke around and explore.
Yeah, I've seen websites where it looks like Angel Fire back in the day, where, you know, all the kids were making websites and putting GIFs and MIDI music everywhere, like I was back in the day. And it was so distracting, and everything was like moving, and I was like, I can't pay attention to this, and I just had to get off. I've also seen portfolios where it's just a big essay, the first thing you see, and then their videos like at the very bottom, and I'm like, I want to just see I want to get to the stuff. So having your portfolio load in like on your main page right from the get-go, so we can just get in there, hop in, see what you can do, because again, we're getting tons of applications, so we need to get through this quickly to see if we want to get you into the interview stage. Meg, do you want to go over the sheet that you shared with me?
Yeah, I'll just stick it into the calls chat really quick. So for reference, my name is Meg Mordecai. I interned at Riot Games as their sound designer intern last summer, 2023. And it was the only internship that I applied to, and it was the one that I got. So I happen to know randomly through my figure skating coach, I talked to her about, you know, working on game audio, and she said, oh, I know someone who does that. And I was like, oh, cool. And she was like, yeah, he works at Riot. And I was like, oh, that's my dream studio. So she connected me to him, and he gave me a lot of really amazing advice on both building like my website and my demo reel, but also interviewing. And he made this Google Doc, which contains basically all of the questions that he was asked during his interview process, and also his advice on how to approach each of them. So basically what I did once I got this document is I wrote out thoughtful responses to each of them. And by the time I got to my own interviews, which of course, like, he was applying for Riot, so these are the questions that they're probably keeping consistent between interviews. There were ones that I came across, questions that I came across that are not on this sheet, but because of this sheet, I felt completely prepared for them. And it also just gives a lot of advice on little things you can do to build your confidence before you even get to the interview, so that you're not so much a ball of anxiety going into it. And also just showing that, you know, showing the interview that you're serious about it. So a couple things that I would highlight on the document are looking up the company that you're applying to and their values, like reading through their values page. And as you know, think about the answers that you're crafting for these example questions, kind of thinking about like, oh, which of this, you know, the values of this company are ones that really align with what I believe in, and how can I answer to, you know, kind of show that these values are something that we have in alignment. And it also just goes a long way in showing that like you've done your homework and you have taken the time to like know the company. And this was a question that I was specifically asked, was like, which of our core values do you align with most? Which is kind of a tricky question, but if you have them written down, then you'll be great. And then I'm certainly out of practice on this piece of advice, but for about a week or 2 weeks before your interview, working hard to stop using filler words and saying it's a habit that you can break quite quickly, and it goes a long way in showing the interviews that you can rise to the occasion and take the job seriously. And let's see. Oh, and the last one that is super duper important is coming into the interview with questions to ask your interviewer at the very end. If you have a few thoughtful ones, they can go a long way. Never say that you don't have any questions at the end. And just going a little further off of that, this was something that I did, and I think my interviewers really appreciated it, was doing some LinkedIn stalking on who your interviewer is, if you can figure out who you're going to be interviewing with. For me, I interviewed with a girl named Rachel, who was one of their high-level sound designers, and I found out that she had a blog, and she had written about going to GDC for the first time as a conference associate. And right before I did my interviews like a few weeks before I was about to go to GDC as a conference associate myself. So that was something that I asked her about at the end of my interview, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, you're gonna have a great time." And that kind of thing is just a way to like authentically connect with your interviewer. And then the last thing that I would say is, like, don't be afraid if you do need to pause on a question, take a couple of seconds to think about it, or even request like, "Hey, can we come back to this question? I think I'm gonna need to kind of let it marinate in your head." Because your interviewers are people too. They understand that it's a high stress environment that you've come into, and it's okay to advocate for yourself and your needs. So yeah, that's kind of the TLDR of what I would highlight on the Google Doc, but I'd also recommend like giving it a thorough read.
Yeah, this sheet looks amazing and very, very helpful. Along the lines of ask questions, I've had many people say, "I'm not applying for your department, so I don't have questions for you." And I'm like, okay, you should have questions for everybody. Ask them what their day-to-day is in the studio. Ask them how you might interact with them in a day-to-day experience, kind of a thing. So always ask questions. When I interviewed with Nicola Martina to get into EA Mythic, I stalked him a little bit to figure out what he had done, what games he had worked on, and that led me to ask him so many more questions about his past projects and stuff like that. And one question that I always ask interviewees is, what would you change in my game? And so even stalking La Martina, I was able to ask, what would you have changed, in your games, kind of a thing. So there's so many things you can ask. So don't hesitate to ask questions.
One of my favorites for ending an interview with, like the last question I asked the interviewers was, is there anything in my application or the interview so far that has you hesitant about hiring me?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's really good because it gives you an opportunity to like assuage their fears. It shows you can take feedback. It shows confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I tell this to everybody who's interviewing. It's like, this is my favorite. Use this.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind because that's a bold question, and it's very helpful too.
Yeah, it's bold, and if you can follow up the criticism with a good volley back, you're set.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Oh, Theo.
Hey, sorry I got a little bit late in here, but I guess I got to see that last part completely. An awesome job, Meg. This is good. I think this is really relevant, and there is a lot of things that I can say that from being on the interviewer side as well. Was it 2 years ago we hired a junior, and I went through probably about 12 interviews, but we had like 120 applications in within 2-3 weeks, which was insane. And that one was interesting because I have been on that side a few times, but this was definitely the biggest one. And I feel like the follow-up is as important as the interview. And I think, for example, if I mention something that you don't know, or if I ask something you don't know, or you don't know how to answer properly, it's, in my opinion, is always okay for you to say, I don't exactly know this question, but I'll get back to you. And if you say that, make sure you do, like, as soon as possible, right? Once you send a follow-up email that you can actually explain, it shows that you actually paid attention to what was the question. You didn't lie, just trying to fill in with something that is wrong, and then suddenly, in a way, you're already seen as like, oh, she's just trying to answer something and is not really getting the right question. Of course, if it's something you're supposed to know, then that's a different situation, because then that's already going to play badly for you. But I think being honest is always a plus, and also following up with just random things like, hey, they were talking about, suddenly you got into conversation about a specific conference like GDC, and later on you just send another email thanking them for that, for the interview and for being so nice and blah blah blah, and then in the end you just say, also looking forward to meeting you at GDC. It's going to be a great time, because you remember these details, and this is very important. You have to be really good mentally, because if you were to keep trying to take notes as you do the interview, you're going to get lost. So you need to try to keep mental notes of everything as you go. So once you go into the actual, like as soon as you're out of the interview, write it all down. So you don't forget, because these things are all important once you go into the follow-up, and possibly a follow-up interview with someone else and stuff like that, because then that shows and keeps people remembering who you are, because, oh yeah, we were talking about this thing, and then it reminds me and bring them back, because sometimes they're going to go through a lot of interviews and it gets a little bit blurry to remember everybody. So a little differential there is always a good one to do. Asking questions is always a plus, and questions that are relevant as well. Any questions? I'd say this is a tricky one, but I know that, and I wouldn't mind, but I know some people do ask questions like, what would you say is the thing that you would improve in the company you're in right now? Or what would you could ask me that, and some people could take that as being as like, oh, she's still unsure about what, if she wants to be in this job or not. But I feel like the majority of people would probably take that okay, mostly because you will get them to evaluate, oh, they are interested on this job, but they also have a value, right? So for them to accept this job is not just because this is like a given that they want to get it just because it's the best thing in their lives, and that they should be grateful they have this opportunity, but they have their value as well. So you should be able to also see that the job is for you, and not just that a job is acceptable, right? So these kinds of questions I do see as being valuable as well. Even questions about payments. Do you feel like raises are something that happen regularly? Things like that can show that you are interested, and at the same time, you are also thinking about yourself, which is important, that you also take care of yourself and take care of yourself as a professional that values your own work. So
Yeah, for sure. You're not only being interviewed, but you should also interview them to make sure that this is where you want to be as well.
Talking about advocating for yourself in an interview. The most recent person I helped hire, the thing that really like sent them over the line for me was when they got asked if they were willing to relocate for the job, and they said no. Like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. Maybe in a couple of years, but right now I want to stay where I am. Like, okay, cool. You're willing to like, make room for yourself in this. That's really very impressive.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
One question real quick. Meg, do you mind if I save a copy of this doc for myself?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, like, it's not something that I wrote up. I added, a couple of comments to it, but this comes from Daniel Kim, who is a sound designer. He's been working at Riot for about 4 years now.
Awesome. I'll make sure to share this in the resources as well.
Maybe worth it to make a copy, Michelle, and sharing that copy, because then nobody's gonna make changes and things on Meg's document.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, so I wanted. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I go ahead and ask a question?
Yeah.
Cool. So I was curious about what you think of in applying as someone who has like a company and works as a freelancer with projects that are currently like active, while also being like in extra work. If you apply with that kind of background, how does that sort of play into the minds of the recruiter? Is that like, okay, this person seems to be caught up in a lot of things already, it seems to be doing a lot of freelance stuff, sort of where I'm in right now, like that's the kind of position that I'm in at the moment. So I'm curious about what you see about that kind of thing.
So we've definitely, like, throughout my career, I've seen people who have multiple jobs alongside, the one they're doing. Most companies will have you write up a statement saying which stuff is you're currently working on, and they'll make sure that will be that is separate, and that won't be a conflict of interest with what you're currently doing. But it's something you still have to keep in mind, because if you are working for say you're working for another AAA company that's direct competition, that will definitely be a conflict of interest at that time, and so that will hinder you in that way.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to deter you. You just got to be honest and upfront with what you're doing.
For sure.
If that came up in an interview, I would expect that the agreement with the company would be that once you're hired on, you're no longer doing this stuff. Like if you're doing freelance for other games as well. For my company specifically, like I am explicitly not allowed to do audio for other games at the same time. So
That's very common in AAA. I expect. I know here in Norway, Funcom does that on a regular basis, and you cannot do any game projects on the side at all. But if you are a composer, generally there's very few composer in-house jobs. Those I know that if you are a composer in-house, you are not doing any work for anybody else. But if you are doing composing work on the side, but then you apply and you get a job as a sound designer, for example, and you know explicitly you're going to be working on no music on that game studio, then there's still a possibility of an agreement there, because technically, even though they're both in audio, they're different things, and I don't know, there could still be seen as a conflict of interest. Indie studios tend to be a lot more lenient on that, especially because they pay a lot less. So I think it will be generally like very dependent on what the job is and what the studio you are looking at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
To kind of backtrack on following up after an interview, if you talk to Nick LaMartina, he says one of the reasons why he hired me is because I actually sent him a thank you letter, like a physical thank you letter. It's probably not the norm so much anymore, but he said that made me stand out so much, and he's kept my letter ever since. Just kind of a random story.
I just want to chip in and say that it's like it seems to be like these kind of small acts or small. I've heard like several stories, like you mentioned now, where the recruiter seems to really catch on to stuff when something out of the ordinary happens, and then it might not be the one that they hire, but it becomes so memorable that it's that it really catches your attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even if it didn't get me the job, it's still memorable. You're in their minds. So if you ever apply again, they're like, "Hey, this is the person that did that," and they're like, "Oh yeah." So it's like, yeah.
One thing I did remember we talking about earlier, someone asked about what to add on their YouTube clip, and I remember, I think Theo said that if you have a lot of things to show, add shorts so they can easily swipe through each and every video, and if you have specific things like sound design or soundscape or Foley's and all that, try to make a short about that, compress your video and all that, or make a 1 minute long short, or just a video about those specific things that you do. That really shows the variety of things you can do and also gives them a possibility to just, okay, let's skip through, see what we like. Oh, that was cool. If I remember that correctly, Theo.
Yeah, I feel like this goes between. I feel like art director to art director or people that are hiring different ways of what they prefer. I myself am not a very big fan of a lot of sound redesign because I just see a lot of videos and there's just a bunch of videos with just changing the audio, and that for me is linear media. But if I can see them creating a project on Fmod or Wise or just directly on Engine, and they can show me a snippet of that, how that's working, then it's much more valuable for me. Then that's what I want to see, that they can actually understand the difference between just making a sound, which can be great, and putting it inside a video. That's different than actually making a sound and putting inside a system that you design and shows that you understand that. But going to your point, Eric, I think in this case, for interview purposes, I think the good thing that can be done there is if you have these snippets on your portfolio of different things you've done, you can still have a sound redesign, but variety is always good. And once you come into an interview, you can always mention those things. Because in a way, first of all, you're testing your interviewer that they checked your portfolio, which is also important for you. I think that's the kind of thing that all interviewers should at least 5 minutes before their interview check their portfolios again, so they are really on point of what who the interviewee is. And I think it's fair that you bring up these things, but that will also get their curiosity, because if they forgot once the interview is over, they might go check it out. It might get their interest in that. It's like, so you bring up these things that are on your portfolio, right? And another thing you can say is you can say, oh yeah, I also worked on this project. I didn't put anything of it um, on my portfolio for you this time, just because I wasn't sure of what you were looking for. But now that I do, I can prepare something custom for you and send it to you tomorrow. That is a big one, I think, because once you send something custom the next day on a follow-up as well, that is specifically for what the company is doing, that's an easy sell in, I think, because very few people do that, and it will make you stand out a lot. And I had one person do that, and that was a big one. And yeah, he's the one that got the job. So I think that this is the kind of thing that once you listen to what's being told to you and you actually bring that back, and you can always refer to things that you've done or things that you've considered, that can play out really well.
Does anyone else have any other questions? I see somebody typing.
I might have one.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So it's about the reel again, because I also am going for an approach to have like 4 different reels, because I'm not doing this alone. It's with my company. We're with 2 people and 1 composer, 1 sound designer, and we are making like different videos based on subjects. But I was thinking like, say, the technical sound design part and the creative sound design part. I was planning to make 2 different videos, but do you think it's better to maybe just make that one video, because it like intertwines, right? So I'm not really sure what would be the best approach.
I specifically had 2 different reels on my website when I was applying, one for creative and one technical. I think that's a really good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I think having them separate would be fine.
I would always prefer them separate. And going back to what Eric said, I would prefer them every little thing in individual videos that are on like a player or a playlist on YouTube or whatever, because then I can go to the next and go to the next and go to the next instead of trying to find on the timeline of the video where things are.
Yep.
Okay.
Isn't there like a possibility to like timeline it, saying like this game or that?
Yeah, of course, you
Yeah.
can do that on YouTube and mark it where it is. That also works.
That's what I do with all my videos, so that people say like, okay, this is long, skip, skip, skip. Okay, creature work the system, heard it, skip. And then they go to the next video, and then they're ready to go. But good knowing making or showing cases, then I can actually start doing some old projects and then improve it so that I can show some different aspects of things. There's also a 3D 3D kit in Unity that allows you to play a little game. I mean, that's a good place to start with sound design, really, and also just showing the technical sound, practical, showing that the sound you made, editing, and all that. It's a good first start game at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Joe Vertones, did you fix your microphone?
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh! I 50-50 did not know if that was gonna work. Sorry, I should have checked that before hopping on. Thank you
it's
for
fine.
asking that.
Technology.
Oh, that was a relief.
Now you have something to show for it. You're now technical sound designer who can fix things.
Do input mics on Discord.
I could fix my microphone in Discord. Hire me.
Special skills.
I have a friend that I've been playing with on Discord, and I don't know how this happens, but his voice just keeps going higher and higher as he keeps talking. We don't understand what's happening. Like, what hardware would make you keep sounding like a munchkin? Because he has his deep voice, and then it just keeps getting higher and higher. We love it, though. But as an audio person, I cannot for the life of me figure out, like, what is happening? But it's awesome. Sorry, random tangent. Are there any other questions or thoughts before we end it?
Now that my mic's working, I do have one.
Yeah.
On my portfolio website, I have like a sound design section and a sound implementation section. Like I made my own levels in like Unreal and Unity and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have one video that's the gameplay and then one video that's the implementation walkthrough. Are those okay? Like, are people gonna watch the gameplay video, or should I just have the implementation walkthrough video?
Can you do a third video that you show both?
Could run into aspect ratio problems and readability.
I'm thinking more like a full screen, and then you can either show the full screen and then have the whole video on its top left corner, perhaps. I mean, it's probably some section of Fmod or Wise or whatever that is never going to be properly necessary to see. So they can see like, okay, here it is. Or they can just shove it up, and then it's probably up in the lower bottom and then the top bottom. That's fine.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I do think having separate is good. Like, if you just want to see, if someone just wants to see the final project and what your like creative sensibilities are like, then just gameplay is totally fine. If they want to dig in deeper and understand your methodology, then having the tech right there is great.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah. I'm curious what you think about audio middlewares right now, in terms of if someone comes in with like Fmod only or Wise only, like what are your chances? Where do you place that in sort of like the recruitment camp?
Uh, I would hope, because I know a lot of application like job postings will say have some knowledge of Wise or Fmod. It also depends on the job. Like if it's gonna be like a lead, I'm working with Wise and Unity. I would want that person to know at least some Wise and Unity. Because I would want them to, kind of just jump in. I know they still have to learn the ropes and how implementation works on the team, because it's going to be different for each team. But, I want them to know that. If it's just for like a regular audio job, like audio entry, like 3 years or even, 1 year of knowledge, if you know Fmod, great, because that also shows me you have skills and you know middleware and you have some implementation, because you could still bring some of those ideas between Wise and Fmod. I mean, they are very different, but you could still bring some of that ideology to both of them.
It's one of those more knowledge is never a bad thing situations.
Yeah.
Where would you place like Fmod and Wise right now in terms of like usage, among developers?
Wise,
A lot more.
Fmod is my thought. Wise is
Yeah.
definitely the staple.
Yeah.
I feel like you
Yeah.
see Wise a lot more at AAA and Fmod a lot more at indies.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I don't know if there's any basis in reality there, but that's what the impression I get.
I wonder
That's
I wonder if
everybody
it's the
wanting to be
licensing.
Celeste.
Cheaper, right?
Wise and Fmod are both free up to a certain amount of money, and after that they cost some coinage. What I do know as someone who does programming as well, if you were going to technical, I would definitely use both, because that is great to show that you are versatile in any and everything, but also that if you can use Wise and then implement it and then attach with either nodes or with scripting, or whatever that is needed, that's even better for a technical skill. If you are for sound design, I would say that you just do like a slowly placing things each place, then you compress it so that it goes super fast, showing like every pieces and bits everywhere where it's going. Attach that, showing that okay, you can do this very short version, and then it shows the end result of your sound, and showing also that when you are live connecting them or live previewing them, then you can show that okay, everything works, everything is connected, good. That's for sound design at least. For technical, I would probably focus more on slowing down a bit with the programming and connecting each and everything. As someone who has been studying for the last 7 years, it's apparently something people like to see, that you can explain in great depth that everything that you do, and since you can't go in and talk like for 5 minutes, showing, not telling, is also a good way to show it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially, I'm on the mobile side, and I have to wear all the hats. Sam, are you the same way? Do you wear all the hats?
Which hats are we talking about here?
Because I was talking to a big team. I was like, "What's your position?" He's like, "Oh, I'm the technical audio artist. I put everything into Wise and put it into nodes and stuff." He's like, "What do you do?" I was like, "I do everything. Oh, I have to create it. I have to render it. I have to put it in Wise. I have to put it in the game."
Yeah, so that's more or less our workflow. We've got like a whole litany of custom tools, so everybody handles their own stuff from creation to implementation to mixing and whatnot. But for actual tool creation, the technical side of things, even if I am off in my own little mobile pocket, we're on the same tool set, so I have all of the collective knowledge of about 60 of the most brilliant engineers I've ever known to pull on.
Yeah. Are there any more questions or thoughts before we end this?
Yeah, Sam, what was that thing that the application for cover letters and all that? What was that called again?
Oh,
Application
I think it's called
track.
Application Tracking System, ATS.
Could you
Sorry
put
for the
that
click
in
clacks.
could you put that
Oh
a
yeah,
link
Job Scan.
to-
That's the one I used way back
Okay.
when. Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind putting that in the resources as well?
Sure. Where? Just in the chat, or do we have like a dedicated resource spot?
We have a
that I just...
the resources spot. There's tools, and then just a whole bunch of
Oh, there we go.
resources to plop it into. All right. Anything else? I saw you raised your hand. Yes.
So I'm a student kind of finishing up school right now, and for a lot of us in school, like a lot of experience we get like making a game from start to finish and doing the audio is with game jams. And with game jams, since it's such a condensed short amount of time, would the work we do in that still be a good portfolio piece into this kind? Okay, cool. I just know some people. So I was told for someone was like, since it's just like a short amount of time, it might not be your best work, so it might not be the best feature, or it could be good because it shows you did the work working with a team and doing the full thing. So I just wasn't sure what general opinion was.
I would.
Few things are sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Michelle.
no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say few things are more impressive than finishing a project and working with a team. Like a
Yep.
lot of people can't ship a project. That's so being able to prove that you can do that and you have done that is big.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Anything else? All
Do you
right.
have any job offers?
I'm not looking for anything at the moment. It's tough, and I'm so sorry.
I'm not hearing a no.
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm trying to convince the powers that be to give me a junior or something, but it's not happening yet.
Yeah, I suspect for a lot of companies too, it's going to be a while because I know there are some posts going up, but yeah, it's been a tough time. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I hope I even learned a thing or two, and I'll definitely be posting that document, a copy of it, into the resources so we can all, take a look at it afterwards. Hit me up anytime. Make a post in the forums if you have any further questions. Thanks again.
When is the next
Oh yeah, good question.
portfolio or review?
So I would say, so it's open right now. I usually close it after, there's at least 5. And that's mostly just for the professionals to go in and do their thing. But anyone right now can go in, make a thread, put their comments on people's work. The more eyes, the better. And I promise I will try to get to your guys' stuff as soon as I can to give feedback. I'm a busy person. So, but yeah, I say post in there anytime it's open, and I'll let everyone know when it's closed for the rest of us to put our thoughts on it. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.